All right, hello and welcome to AWS Made Easy Ask Us Anything live stream brought to you by CloudFix. This is episode number 48. I'm Stephen Barr, and we have Raul Subramaniam.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show.
And we're very lucky to be joined by Meredith Holborn of AWS. Welcome,
Hi.
Meredith.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
I think that covers all our time zones.
I think
Meredith,
so.
You're in the UK where it's afternoon?
It is cusp of evening. It's 5 p.m. here, so end of our workday for most.
And then Raul, evening in...
I'm in Chennai and it's about 9:30 p.m. over here. Also the end of the workday.
And I've got the opposite, 12 and a half hours before you, Raul, so 9 a.m.
Yeah, so Stephen is in Seattle on the East Coast, so we are as diverse as possible. I think we were just probably missing Australia on this call.
Well, if they're up late, we're happy to have you here. For any of our Aussies on the call, I used to live there, so you get used to these late night webinars and live streams. So how's everyone doing? How was your weekend?
Meredith?
It was great. We had a long weekend in the UK here. I live in Manchester, so we had okay weather. It's always a bit of a risk on a bank holiday weekend to get decent weather, and even riskier if you live in the Northwest like I do. So had a couple of nice days, got out in the garden, did some spring cleaning and that sort of thing. It was really lovely.
Oh, fun. How about you, Raul? How was yours?
Very interesting. My kids' school decided to spring a bake sale surprise on us. And all the parents had to get together and prep for a bake sale, but it was fun. I mean, we had a lot of the families kind of get together, and we did we did all the baking together. The kids had a blast. Very little reached the school, unfortunately, because between all the parents and the grandparents and the kids and everyone else that was at the party, we basically ended up consuming most of it. But overall, it was a lot of fun. So.
Well, you had to test it before you could put it out into the world, right?
Everyone needed to test it. So by the time we finished all the baking and the testing, well, little went to the school, but yeah, they all had a good time. So it was a good, relaxing weekend. What about you, Stephen?
We had some friends over on Friday, and it was those friends where every kid has a counterpart kid to play with, and we had neighbors over, and it was really, really fun. And we stayed up way too late. It was a blast. So hopefully more weekends like that as it warms up here. Not quite to the 42 degrees Celsius that you're experiencing, but on our we consider it warm if it cracks 30.
I can't wait. At the end of the month, I'm going to be in Seattle, so I'm looking forward to much nicer weather.
Yeah,
when we get there. Great. So we have a packed show today.
Absolutely. No, we usually we're talking about cloud intelligence dashboards today, and we usually do one or two AWS news announcements, so we wanted to leave as much time for Meredith as we can. We did see one article that caught our eye. I'm going to post a link to that in the comments. There we go. And then I need to share my screen. 1 second here. Let's see. Share the right window. There. All right, QuickSight launches dataset parameters to optimize slicing and dicing experiences. So QuickSight parameters, looking at this, it looks like you can have parameterized SQL queries that can then propagate to all of the I guess, other queries powering your dashboards. So Raul, what's your take on this one?
Yeah, I think whatever makes it easier to set up these dashboards and not have to do a whole lot of custom stuff. Parameterized queries is probably one of the most commonly asked and important use cases with QuickSight dashboards, because you don't want to create a whole lot of custom stuff or custom queries and custom Athena data sets based on each dashboard type you're creating. You typically want to leave the data set as it is and then figure out how to parameterize those queries against that data set. So the thing that I'm not quite sure about over here is, is there going to be one data set that assumes that all these queries, all these fields are going to be parameterized and just collect it all together and make that available in Athena, and then you, in real time, based on the filters that you have, slices them?
At this sentence here, now these SQL queries can be passed along their parameters to QuickSight data sets via automations. And Meredith, you're a heavy QuickSight user, as well, we're going to find out in a minute here. What do you think of this one? Just on, I know we kind of sprung this on you, but what do you think of this particular announcement? Is it going to be useful to you, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. So the keywords I pick out here is legacy reports. So we hear a lot about, I already have this existing report. I have these dashboards. I've already put a lot of work into all of this. How can I modernize that and bring that into QuickSight? So I think this is going to open up that door a little bit more for a lot of our customers out there.
But what would that change for this Athena query? Because the Athena query is SQL anyway, and that's what decides what the data set is going to be when you bring it in. Is it that the data set is like a lazy load at this point?
Great questions, Rahul. Haven't had much of a chance to dive into this one yet. But...
Not a problem. We will get back to you on this. But this definitely seems interesting. If it is a lazy load of the data set because the parameters come in real time, that would be really interesting. But that would slow down Athena a lot more, I would assume, unless you kind of, cache it or load it all up in Spice.
Yeah, so I do see in the documentation it talks about that this is can be used when it's a direct query. Dataset parameters can only be used by dataset filters when the dataset's using direct query. So maybe that's how that alleviates the Athena
Got it.
overhead.
Is this in the details here? Yeah, let's see. Dataset I see. Analysis parameter through controls, calculated fields. Okay, this is neat. All right, well, this is part of the show that we do. For a new AWS announcement, we usually say, does this make your life simpler or more complex? My reaction to this is going to be it simplifies. This looks like a new feature. You don't have to use it if you don't want to, but if you can leverage it, it seems like this is going to make things easier to have the same set of parameters that can be passed to multiple queries. Everyone agree? I shouldn't have rated it till we reach consensus.
No. I think so. I'm curious to go talk to the QuickSight team this week and find out some more details about use cases and what is the value add here. Again, I mean, obviously the legacy reports thing, if it enables you to modernize your current environment, then that's a bonus. Simplifies it for certain use cases, definitely, but I don't know what all of those use cases might be just yet.
Yeah, so at the face of it, it looks like it simplifies, but I think if I were to give it a score for a blog post standpoint or for an announcement standpoint, I'd probably give this a 2 or 2.5 because there's so much it's
I'm going to round up to 3 because I still haven't made my 2.5. Well, I think we always like examples. So examples.
Yeah, we like examples. We like to make it, or we would like to see these posts be very crisp in terms of what someone can do with it right away. When someone reads this announcement, it's really hard to figure out who the audience is. Great, you have legacy reports, but is it legacy reports in the older versions of QuickSight? Is it legacy reports in a tool like, ClickView or something like that? Like, who does it apply to? And then what's an example of a parameterized data set where you would take an old report and transform it? Like, having that show up in these posts, or at least in an adjacent, blog post, like for further details, visit here. That doesn't seem. Can you go down and see if it has an example there?
Let's see. Creating dataset parameters. Let's see. Supported.
That doesn't help you figure out how you would, or what is the use case that's.
Here we go. So here's select star from transactions where region equals $region name, and now you can do region in, region name with multiple parameters. That's pretty cool.
But how does the transformation of an old report work over here? I'm still not clear about that.
All right, we'll have to dive into this and find out. All right, well, let's let's
Okay.
jump into the featured part of the show, which is cloud intelligence dashboards. So, Meredith, I'm going to basically hand this over to you. Really excited to find out more about them. I guess, should we start with what they are and how you got involved? What's your background in AWS?
Yeah, definitely. Let's start there. It's a good place to start at the beginning. So Cloud Intelligence Dashboards is a suite of dashboards. So we've got 6 in total. Hopefully today I can focus on 4 of them, get some demos in there and show some of the insights and actions that we can take from these dashboards. But these dashboards were created by a group of AWSers, a lot of technical account managers like myself. So I'll talk a little bit about what technical account managers are and what we do inside AWS in a minute as well. But these were created by us to support our customers. There's a big focus in all of these dashboards around cost optimization. And the reason for that is, as technical account managers at AWS, one of our big focuses is on cost optimization. We focus on operational things. We also, help support our customers with escalations when there's support cases. We provide some context around what they're doing in the real world and what we're trying to get the service to do for them, in order for the service teams to come along and support them hands-on that way. With the cost optimization hat on, we do a lot of talking about how to, optimize costs. Yes, of course, but there's ways to optimize performance, your fault tolerance, your security, and all of those things can in turn have an impact on your cost. So, if your applications are performing at their best, then your customers are happy and your support teams and your operational teams internally aren't spending loads of time scrambling around and getting things back to the operational state. So with that focus from the technical account managers, this group of TAMs came together and built some dashboards. So we started off with the cost intelligence dashboard, and that's sort of the basis of the Kudos dashboard. So I'll hopefully be able to show a bunch of the Kudos dashboard later today. But this cost intelligence dashboard started off as a way to show high-level spend across your organization. So when we're looking at AWS, our spend is all sort of siloed into different accounts. And sometimes getting that holistic view across, an entire payer, an entire business unit, maybe you've got multiple payers, multiple organizations, maybe you're a big conglomerate, you've got a lot of small businesses that operate individually. In order to get your arms around all of that and visualize it in one place, you need something like QuickSight dashboards to populate that data and put it in one spot. As you both know, lots of AWS tools out there, lots of ways to look at your spend, lots of tools that can help you identify resources that could be optimized. But what these dashboards really focus on doing is consolidating all of that data into one place. So the team has been working really hard for the last couple of years. I've been involved in the dashboard since, I think, end of 2020. So I've been at AWS just about 3 years, and a lot of that I've been working with this Cloud Intelligence Dashboards group, partly because I saw a need for my customers, and I thought, this is a self-service method for my customers to, really get some insights into their spend and not just wait for our monthly meeting where I presented their cost and their trends and some cost optimization suggestions or tactics, strategies. And so this dashboard, I thought, well, if I can help get the word out about these, my customers can benefit a lot in the long run. And then we can have some more strategic conversations rather than, just nickel and diming almost. So yeah, that's a bit of the background.
It's really interesting that having this product that was basically built by yourself and other TAMs to really help the customers. It's really interesting. And this is a question that we face too, but from an AWS perspective, when you say, okay, I work for AWS and yet I'm helping people spend less. How do you explain that to people? If they would say, why don't you want to make it obfuscated and make it, and you want to nickel and dime them, right? So how do you explain that to people?
Yeah, so I mean, to be totally honest with you, it's one of the reasons why AWS was at the top of my list when I started to do a job search a few years ago. That, customer obsession leadership principle, we really do live by it. It is important to us that our customers are happy and that our customers are getting the best out of what we are providing. And I think it goes back to, Amazon retail as a whole and kind of Jeff Bezos' original concept of how we be customer obsessed, and taking care of your customers and not nickel and diming them creates loyalty. And it means that, customers are willing to look to us to modernize, to migrate workloads, because they know that we have all of these tools to help you use us the best way you can. And you're not going to keep going back to a provider that's finding all sorts of little subscriptions and things to add on all the time, rather than helping you cut that down to something that's, A, reasonable, and B, is going to help with your performance as a whole. So it's, yes, cost optimization, but without losing the performance side of it, right? Because the easy, one of the silly questions and answers we get is, how do I spend less on AWS? And the simple, easy answer is, well, use it less. But that's not the reality of it, right? When you're asking that question, it's because you're trying to grow, you're trying to build more, but you want to get more for your money.
People want to be using it. So go ahead.
No, I was going to jump right in, Meredith, and get you to tell us a little bit about how these dashboards are set up and where are they installed.
Yep.
And what does a typical customer see when it is deployed?
Great questions. Stephen, did you have something else you wanted to throw in there?
Oh, I was just, this is going to be a funny reference. Remember that old Christmas movie, Miracle on 34th Street, where, the Santa character in there tells the parent, hey, you can actually go buy this toy somewhere else. And the parent goes, wow, you have made a loyal customer out of me. I'm going to, the Kohl's department store for everything from, from appliances to dishwashers, right? Because of that helping you save money. And it's really amazing, just that loyalty that it creates. I mean, I know from both my own experience using AWS as a customer and as a partner, it really does bring out that loyalty to say, okay, we'll help you make sure you're getting the most out of your spend so that you keep coming back. I think it's a really neat approach.
Yeah, 100%. It makes sense. If you break it down as simply as that, it does make sense. And dollars.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, these aren't nickels and dimes anymore, especially when we're talking about QuickSight. All right, well, let's jump into it. Let's
jump into it. So I'll share my screen, see if I can figure out how to do this here.
Great, it should show up.
It's in the present menu.
Yep, I've got the menu now. It's just gonna be a matter of, what do I share? Okay, so drag this over here. Perfect. Okay, so I've got up, hopefully you can see the well-architected labs.
Here it is.
Oh, there it goes. Yeah, perfect. So this is the well-architected labs site. So if you're not familiar with this, a huge wealth of resources and hands-on labs that you can actually walk through inside your own AWS accounts. One of these labs under the cost optimization pillar. So because this is the well-architected labs, you'll see that they're broken out into the 6 well-architected pillars. So under cost optimization, we're in the level 200 labs, and we've got the cloud intelligence dashboards. So there's a little bit of a framework. There's a bit of a architecture deployment diagram that I can talk through a little bit. So these dashboards, the greatest thing about these dashboards is that they are yours. You own the data, you deploy the dashboards, and they live inside your AWS accounts. So there are loads of third-party solutions out there that can visualize your cost and usage data, but typically that data is then theirs. And so in this deployment model and sort of the the strategy behind the way we've set up our framework is that everything stays inside your own AWS accounts. All of the data is already there and is yours, and you just leverage that to visualize inside the 6 templates that we have for the dashboards. So it starts off with the data sources. So the most common one that's used for 50% of our dashboards is the cost and usage report. So this is something that you can enable inside your AWS account, and it will log line items for every single aspect of your cost and usage. One of the prerequisites for these dashboards is that that's an hourly cost and usage report.
Got it. And does the automation or does the CloudFormation script automatically set this up for you, or does this have to be set up in advance of running the CloudFormation script?
The good news is there's 2 ways to do it. There's flexibility, I should say. So you do have a CloudFormation template that's going to create the cost and usage report for you. So you can do absolutely the full deployment just through CloudFormation. So CloudFormation template to create the cost and usage report with all the required prerequisites that we have. So that's hourly and the Parquet format. And we also need to make sure we've got resource IDs in there. So that will create it. And then there's another CloudFormation template. So actually, let me just skip to the diagram. This is a visual format. So the recommended deployment method is that we actually put the dashboards. Oh.
Was that happening to you as well, Stephen, or was it just me?
I think it was just a second. Hopefully, it was just a
I think a
disturbance in the force.
Thing. You can go right ahead.
Hopefully, clears up. I don't always have the best luck with my internet connection, especially when I'm trying to do something really important. So, the CloudFormation template is designed to be deployed against 2 different accounts, actually. So, best practices is we don't put real workloads inside our payer account. So best practice is that we use a separate data collection account is what we're calling it in this instance, or a cost account, could be a governance, something that is outside of that central payer account, because we don't want any savings plans or reserved instances to potentially get eaten up by workloads that they shouldn't be. So put this in a separate account. The CloudFormation template's a 3-part thing. So first template deploys this S3 bucket and sets up some policies to allow S3 replication from this other account. So some trust between these 2 accounts. The second CloudFormation template is going to create the cost and usage report, also creates the S3 bucket in the payer, and sets up that replication. So effectively what we're doing here is creating the cost and usage report in the payer where it lives. That will have all the cost and usage for all your linked accounts underneath that payer. And then it's going to copy all of that data into this S3 bucket, which is in the account where our dashboards are going to go. Finally, the third CloudFormation template is going to deploy the framework bits. So that's your Athena views, your glue crawler. There's a couple of Lambda functions. There's an event bridge rule, and then also all of your QuickSight resources around your data sources, data sets, and then the dashboards get deployed from a template. And then you can give access to all of your internal users that might need to look at those dashboards.
Got it.
Any questions about that bit?
I was just curious why a decision was made to copy over and literally duplicate all the data in the S3 bucket when we could have created an IAM role that was read-only permissions, because you're not writing anything to CUD, you're only reading from it, right? So is there any particular reason why there was a decision made to replicate everything over?
I'm not sure exactly what the decision-making process was on that, but it's a good point. I know you guys talk about sometimes there's a lot of different ways to do the same thing inside AWS, right? So yeah, the decision to do it this way, if there was anybody on the Livestream right now from the core team who created them. They could throw in some comments here. But no, I'm not sure about the decision-making process there. I know there's some life cycle rules so that, we're not storing this data forever inside the data collection accounts. Because again, that wouldn't be very cost effective to store all of our cost and usage data forever. You don't need it forever. The dashboards by default are going to visualize 6 months of data. So 7 months, but this month included plus the previous 6. So we don't need to keep it for that long.
Okay.
Cool. So that is that's deployment stuff. So we talked about CloudFormation as an option to deploy, but we also have a command line tool that is in a public GitHub repo, I believe under alternative deployment methods. You'll see. So if you really, if you've got some time on your hands and you want to manually deploy the dashboards, this is how it all started. This is how it was when I first got involved with this. It was a step-by-step build the whole thing. So, if you go through this whole lab, you're going to learn a lot. You're going to see exactly how the dashboards come together. You're going to see how the data sources are shared. It is, it's a good lab to go through. I wouldn't recommend it if you're actually just trying to get the dashboards deployed to use them to action some cost optimization things, because this will take you a lot longer than the automation, of course. But it is a really good learning opportunity to walk through and what's been built here. And also,
funny,
an appreciation for how they've taken all this into something automated.
No, I put the link to the AWS samples, AWS Kudos framework deployment GitHub repository, and it's interesting. We take the same approach. We've just published a bunch of CloudFix blogs, and we take the same approach of here's how to do it manually. Here's a totally transparent process, but then here's the automation as well. Because doing it manually is a good exercise, but there's lots of little corner cases that we want to make sure you don't get stuck there.
Yeah. And just to be clear, we prefer simplicity. So unless you're really adventurous and have a lot of time on your hands, take the simple and more assured path of using the automation.
Yes.
So with that, let's take a 30-second break, and we come back, we will get into looking at some of the particular dashboards. We're looking forward to that. All right, we will be right back after a word from CloudFix, our sponsor. Thanks.
Public cloud costs going up and your AWS bill growing without the right cost controls? CloudFix saves you 10 to 20% on your AWS bill by focusing on AWS recommended fixes that are 100% safe with zero downtime and zero degradation in performance. The best part? With your approval, CloudFix finds and implements AWS fixes to help you run more efficiently. Visit cloudfix.com for a free savings assessment.
All right, and we are back. Oh, not that layout. There we go. Cool.
Great.
Awesome.
Are we
I am
going
unmuted.
back to
Good.
your screen, Meredith? Are you going to showcase your screen?
Yes,
again?
I will bring up.
Yeah.
There it
we
is.
go.
Perfect.
Beautiful.
So this
Right.
is the
So I wanted
API
to.
tracker.
This is the KPI dashboard. Yes. Is my audio going again? It sounds like it might be a little laggy.
Oh,
I think it's perfect.
It's
It's fine now.
Okay, good. Right, so KPI dashboard, so key performance indicators. One of the reasons we created this dashboard in particular was because sometimes it is hard to really look objectively at your spend across a couple of different workloads and be able to see if you're performing, is one performing better than the other? One of them is spending significantly more than the other, but does that actually mean that we're not as optimized? You need something that is a baseline across all these different business units or workloads or applications that you provide for your end customers. So this is where the KPI dashboard was born from, was this idea of kind of setting our goals against particular cost optimization efforts and then measuring those over time. So the other nice thing with this dashboard is we get this 3-month historical view, so we can see, are we improving? Are things getting worse? But again, because we're going here based on percents, it helps us to be able to say, okay, this workload is spending, is got about 50% savings plan coverage, which is really, it's good. The other workload has only 5%. And so, okay, that's an area that we can invest some time and effort for that workload and purchase some savings plans. And then maybe we can, level ourselves out a little bit. So the idea here is that you set your goals for what you are aiming towards. And we've seen suggested KPIs here that we think are things that you should be tracking throughout your cloud journey. Or modernizing, if you've done a lift and shift from something on premise or from another cloud, and then you need to modernize on that, some of these KPIs can help you in those. So if you're unfamiliar with what the suggested KPI is and why you should think about it, we've got a whole goal down here at the bottom. So
this seems pretty neat and opinionated.
One of my favorites.
Meredith, one question that I have is,
yes,
is there a minimum size that you believe these dashboards become relevant? Like, is it someone who spends 10 million plus on AWS annually? That's when this kind of really becomes important? Or do you see this across the entire spectrum of AWS customers? The higher, the better, I assume, but...
Yes, I mean, obviously, the higher spend, probably the more accounts you've got, probably the more disparate workloads, and all of those kinds of things that just come with a bigger set of data. You've got more data that you need to analyze. These things become a lot more helpful for you. But my customers range from quite small to quite large. If we're using t-shirt sizes, then go from mediums up to XL. And most of them use these dashboards. I think probably if you've got a cost-conscious company, then no matter what you're spending, these are going to be important. But I think probably you should be spending, I don't know if I would even want to put a number on it. I think I would say if you're running any production workloads inside AWS, then these will be valuable to you.
Or let me ask it in a different way. What are the costs, like treating this like an ROI, right? What are the costs associated with running something like this?
Yes.
And then look at the returns against.
Exactly, yeah. So that's definitely one aspect, is obviously make sure that you're not spending more on QuickSight and the underlying services that are fueling these dashboards than you are in your AWS spend. So yeah, one of the other big benefits of these dashboards is they are very cost effective. Part of the reason for that is they are all serverless. So, we're just using what we're just spending what we're actually using, which is one benefit. The cost, actually, if I jump back over in our FAQs, we have is going to come from your QuickSight is that in-memory cache inside QuickSight itself. We've got a breakdown here somewhere of cost.
And this is in the FAQ section of those 200
One frequently asked
labs.
question under pricing.
Got it.
That's right, yes. So this is making some assumptions that, we've got 22 working days in a month. We're using 100 gigabytes of Spice capacity, 3 authors. So those are people who can actually deploy the dashboards. They can share them, they can delete them. And then the number of readers of people who are consuming those dashboards, but not able to, analyze them any deeper with the underlying data sets. Those about 15 readers, we're looking at $200 a month. So we've got some free trial aspects in there. What is not talked about in here is QuickSight Enterprise with Q. So that is a $10 more a month, I think, for the user license.
So it looks like by far QuickSight is the largest cost factor in this entire solution. But in the scheme of things, if the returns are in the thousands of dollars, which it invariably is, might be totally worth it.
It could be, yes.
Well, I mean, that's getting rid of one or two idle instances, especially someone left a P4 on or P2 on. That'll pay for itself pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, it's a sensitive subject for me. Well, having people leave those big instances on and just forgetting about them. Yes. Yeah. But you're right. I mean, so, I don't have a lot of details on what third-party pricing is. I don't really focus on what else is out there. I know there are alternatives. What I focus on is what can this bring to you? And I know this is one of the more cost-effective solutions out there. And again, because you own it all, you have the ability to streamline those costs even more. So, if we cut out the number of authors to just a single author, you've got your dashboard expert that sits in your finance department, then you're going to task them with the owners and they're the owner of that, and that's it. You can cut out $50 a month right there by taking out 2 of those authors.
Well, and even so I'm curious for the KPI dashboards. Some of them that I saw are like percent on demand versus spot, percent graviton. What are some of the, I guess, surprises that people have when they pull up the KPI dashboard for the first time and they see it? What are some of the surprises that people get?
Yeah. So KPI dashboard, I think a lot of people don't realize how many of our services are covered by reserved instances or savings plans. A lot of people hear about the compute savings plan, which covers your Fargate, your Lambda, and your EC2. But we do also have savings plans around other services. So RDS is not a savings plan, but we have reserved instances there. We also have some additional, where did it just go? So one of my favorites at the moment is the GP3. So GP3 is a new EBS volume type. It came out, gosh, a couple years ago now. It's not new
anymore.
No, exactly. So exactly, but I'm still talking about how you should modernize from GP2 to GP3, because you're just going to realize those savings so easily. And as far as like performance impact and all those things that you have to consider with things like Graviton, GP3 doesn't have any of those same kind of limitations, really, right? The throughput and the IOPS that you're going to get out of the box are going to be the same or better than what you could get with GP2. So I think that's one of the most surprising ones to people. So I showed this table, which is showing us how much of these are our goals and how are we tracking against the goals. But then there's another table that shows us what's the costs that we could be saving if we meet our goals on some of these KPIs. So the things like, again, actually, I say again, but I don't think I prefaced this with, this is sample data, not from real customers. And so therefore, it doesn't paint the same kind of picture as it would if it was, your own environment, right? So just seeing the number that you could save if you had 50% of your EBS volumes at GP3 instead of GP2, a total savings across the last 3 months of $800 with this sample data. That's pretty surprising most of the time for people is, something so simple could save me so much money.
And that's our motto is you'd be crazy not to use GP3. I just linked to our blog post where we say that. It's not one of those like complicated decisions that you have to weigh this against that. It's just like you are better off in every case, under every scenario.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, Meredith, I'm actually interested in your perspective as a TAM. When you speak to customers, like one of the things that I see all the time is customers are still reluctant. Like there's still so much GP2 out there as against GP3. And it's not like it's like, I think pretty much every tool out there talking about GP2 or GP3, trying to get everyone to move. But the movement is just so incredibly slow. What do you see as the root cause of that? Like why for a decision that's such a no-brainer, and this is not one of the more complicated ones out there. This is literally the most no-brainer one. Why do you think there's such a reluctance to switch over?
I don't know if it's so much reluctance as it is people aren't understanding the value of it. And we talk a lot when we talk about these dashboards, we go through the importance of cloud financial management. And if your business doesn't have that foundation for why this is worth the effort, then it's a really hard sell. And I think that we're still kind of, FinOps and cloud financial management is still sort of an emerging area. And I think it's just hasn't permeated out there enough yet. In my experience, it's about finding the right person within the business who, when you tell them this, goes, oh my gosh, yes, we should totally be doing that. And sometimes that takes a little bit of work. As a TAM, I'm very close to my customers, but in this strange time that we live in, since I've started at AWS, TAMs don't go and visit customers as often. We're not immersed in everything as much. And so it's building those relationships and finding the right audience for those messages. But really, the thing that we hear, and I think we have for a long time, and we will continue for a while, is just resources.
In the spirit of finding the right person, who do we need to find at AWS to change the defaults for EBS volumes from GP2 to GP3? Do you have a name that we can go after?
Let me just pull up my directory here for a minute. Yeah, I mean, that's an aspect of it, right? And it's when people implement things, it's really hard to go back and change them. And so I think there's just not enough culture around continuous improvement of your finances. There's this whole, CI/CD concept around your applications and your workloads and modernizing those and optimizing them, but we don't put that same lens on cost. And it really does need to be something like that. It is not something that you do one time and it's set and you never have to think about it again. It's constantly iterating.
We make the analogy too, like fitness, right? You can't just go and say, "All right, I did my 1 mega workout. I'm healthy now. It's over." No,
Gosh, I wish.
Oh, me too. It's a continuous process. Hey, we've got two great questions that I want to address. I want you to address because I don't know. So David is asking, what insights does this provide into SageMaker? And that can be a big cost driver. I had a friend message me and says, I'm in trouble. I left a bunch of GPU instances on for a week and forgot about them. So that wasn't David. What insights can we provide into SageMaker? That could be a big cost driver.
Yeah, so my original plan here. So let me just pause. If you can pull up my screen again there, Sin. I'm just going to pop over to the Kudos dashboard because this one, the Kudos dashboard gives us everything. It gives us that kind of trends. Come on.
And then Kudos stands for...
Oh, now we're back to KPI. Hold on.
There we go. No problem. And so Kudos is the customer usage data.
Kudos stands for...
We got customer usage data, operational...
Organization something, I think is what my Manchester talk.
Organizational solution.
Oh, my internet is... Am I back?
Right. Yeah, you're good.
You're good.
Cost and usage dashboard, operational solution.
Great.
Kind of back.
Yeah, there it is.
You can see you move for a moment.
All right, so we've got Optics Explorer.
There you go.
Okay, so we were going.
Optics
we had the
Explorer.
KPI dashboard, and now we're on Kudos dashboard.
We are on the Kudos dashboard now, yes. So all of the dashboards are available through this public demo here. So the Optics Explorer, this is built by our optics team. That I don't know what that stands for. That's a team within AWS. But for SageMaker spend, so there is AI/ML tab. So this is going to give you some details around SageMaker spend. So again, this is, sample data, so probably doesn't look great. There's going to be a few that don't have any data. So this is around per job. Things are spend in unit costs. Got some baked in or sort of out of the box visuals around SageMaker. But inside Optics Explorer, what I wanted to show you is that it gives us the ability for any service that we might be using, we want to dig into, and we don't see it, if for some reason it's not covered in one of the other 20 tabs of visuals that we have. The Optics Explorer is a super powerful sheet that's going to give you a full set of filters and also gives you a forecast, which is a fairly recent addition that we've put in here. So we could do something simple like show me everything around SageMaker. I could add some other filters like taking out some additional accounts, although this is risky in a live demo because I don't know which accounts actually have SageMaker spend in them. Click a few until I see something pop up. There we go, good enough. I could then, filter into only the regions I care about. And then if I scroll down, these are, again, out of the box visuals, but they've put this very specific lens that I've selected onto it. So I can see my month over month spend. I can see the forecast of my SageMaker spend. I can see daily spend. I can see which accounts are using SageMaker. So this sand key diagram I really love. It's super cool. It is not very effective when it's one account and one service, but the idea is that it shows you which accounts are using which services. And so if there's, a big chunk, I'm all about the easy visuals. If I can go, oh, that looks like an anomaly, or that's an obvious thing that I can pick out as an insight, I'm all about that. So I'm just for impact's sake, I'm going to turn this back to all services. But the great thing is that, you've got all these visuals, which again, we've sort of determined as these are the most helpful, kind of high level. And you'll see as you go down each sheet through the Kudos dashboard, it starts at high level and it gets more granular as we go. So yeah, I can see that this account is spending the most out of all the accounts that I've got. I love that. Super easy. Then I can see which services are actually reflected against that account.
In this case, okay, they're pretty heavy on RDS. They're using a little bit of EC2, but so is that other account and the 161.
Yep. You can do it from the other side too and just highlight which accounts are using each of the services.
That's pretty neat. That's really good. And because you'd expect certain patterns to emerge over time, right? So you'd see the data science account's going to be lots of EC2, lots of SageMaker,
That's right.
And maybe you'd see the production account have a different mix and much more lambdas and things. We have another comment from Chris Collier. See if you want to take that. He's saying, or he or she, this looks amazing. Has been so interested to hear about. Would you recommend an SME business that's entirely AWS?
An SME business that's entirely AWS based. Look to start to use solutions such as this, so it's embedded from the start. I think this goes
I would
back
be
to
a fool to say
question.
no, wouldn't I?
How did we lose
Absolutely.
everyone?
No, we're here.
Absolutely.
So that is a yes.
I can hear you. That is a resounding yes. Especially if you are all in on AWS and you're not using any other clouds, there is, there's even more incentive to keep your cost reporting inside AWS. Why use a third-party tool for something that you can accomplish within your own accounts? And by implementing it from the beginning, what you're going to do is you're going to have that baseline of where you've been, and then you can measure your cost optimization month over month, right? The other dashboard that I wanted to touch on a little bit was the trusted advisor one. And this one I love because of the fact we've got that historical trend. We can see, in this scenario that our cost optimization checks that are coming back have been reduced, and that's what we want to see. That's really good. I could say yes 100 different ways. If you are an SME business, all on AWS, definitely recommend getting some of these, even just the cost intelligence to start off with. So, that's another thing is if you deploy these dashboards, it's super easy because you've got the framework there already to deploy additional dashboards. If you find a need for something that you didn't, I didn't need the granular detail in Kudos right away. So I just deployed the cost intelligence dashboard. And then I'm going to come along 6 months from now, get the Kudos dashboard, and maybe I'll choose to remove the cost intelligence because there is some overlap. And because I'm thinking about cost optimization and do I need these extra resources, I'm going to tidy up after myself and deploy the Kudos dashboard, which is going to give me that high level, but also the granular resource detail.
Yeah, wearing my FINOPS hat on, I'm going to add a little bit to that to say, if you are starting a FINOPS practice, I assume you are, as you're growing your business and you are all in on AWS, having these dashboards is probably the easiest way to kind of bootstrap your entire FINOPS, practice, for a simple reason that it has the vast majority of the data that you will need to drive the decisions that you need to make. And instead of spending enormous amounts of time trying to build that from scratch, you got something right out of the box that you can then customize to your needs. So probably one of the easiest ways to get started. So I would say do this from the get-go. As soon as you create your account, go set these up. They will set up your guardrails for you as you go forward.
Well, we need to get an actual FinOps hat for you so you can just...
Yeah, I know.
That would be great.
And speaking of hats, I'm wearing my AWS Community Builder hat. This is part of my role. So we need hats to signify all these different... it's not just a metaphor. We should actually have the actual hats.
We should have, on my next board meeting, I will make sure that I get a hat that I bring to the show. One question, Meredith, which is, all of these reports look really awesome. On the actionability of them, which is what do I do next once I have these kind of reports? Is there a way to get automation to trigger off some of these data points or these reports, or is that not yet in the setup?
So we don't have any of that sort of built into it, but there are some mechanisms. QuickSight has some alerting functionality, which you could use the alerts to trigger things. But these dashboards are built with the intention to kind of enable you to visualize and then action. So automations can definitely be built. I'm trying to think if I know of any specific things that customers have done that are really slick around this. Nothing's coming to mind, of course, because you've asked me the question. But there are mechanisms, like everything in AWS, and because it's all built inside, the integrations between services and things like that. We leverage Lambda and EventBridge as part of this solution, so you can utilize those same kinds of services to trigger event alerts to your Slack channels or send emails out. But as far as actually, implementing something to go change your GP2s to GP3s, there's nothing that I can think of out of the box that would do that. I'm sure you could build something.
But you can, it's almost like a CloudWatch alarm, right? Where you can say, okay, if this gets to a certain threshold, then send an SNS topic, or like you said, use EventBridge, send out an event, and then you can have something catch it and take note.
There's definitely there's mechanisms to do all of that. I wonder, actually, it's a good thing to potentially bring back to the team and find out if we're thinking of, even adding on to the labs, that would be a really cool additional lab to have. Is okay, now you've deployed the dashboards, now you can add on some automation to this, and here's how you go about doing it.
Yep. And in the meantime, we have CloudFix, but looking forward to all the new stuff that you guys are coming up with. I think we have one more comment over here from Yuri. And if I'm not mistaken, Yuri is on your team, Meredith?
He is, yes. Yuri
it looks
is
like a
our
comment from someone on
lead.
your team.
Yes.
Great.
And so just to kind of wrap up, so Kudos dashboard, that's showing things like idle resources. That's showing, we can show idle VPNs, idle ELBs. We had talked about KPIs, which are like graviton usage, percent of
We should
on
probably
demand.
bring up the dashboard right up here, so everyone can even just take a look at that.
Let's see.
I think it's on Meredith's screen.
Oh, sorry. I will.
Yeah, so let's go through. So we touched on the trusted advisor. So this gives us, the trusted advisor checks around fault tolerance, security, cost optimization. This is where we find idle resources. This is where we find underutilized resources in the cost optimization tab. In our KPI dashboard, we cover those key performance indicators. Again, these are ones that we have come up with. These are your optimization cuts and modernization efforts. We also touched on the Kudos dashboard, which is kind of it is the most popular dashboard for customers because it is the most detailed, but it also gives us all of these executive kind of high level views of, how is our spend trending in general across the different services, but then lets us, as we go into each area, we can get more granular. So if I scroll all the way to the bottom of the compute, we get some resource specific much data trying to load dashboards. So yeah, we get down into the weeds with specific lambdas, and then we have these powerful sheets like Tag Explorer. So we didn't touch on this much, but Tag Explorer lets you bring in your cost tags and see how your cost. We don't actually have any tags in this one, so not a great example. But then the Optics Explorer is going to be your most powerful thing, which again gives you that high level, but also as much granular, like that, not those little details. Use those little details.
And with the Tag Explorer, I guess thinking about our SMB question, right? If you were if you're a smaller business, make sure you start having a tag strategy now that can grow with you and is thought out. Otherwise, you end up like a library without a Dewey Decimal System. You just have a bunch of stuff floating around, and no idea who's using it or why it exists. Is this a test instance? Is this a prod instance? How to divide and understand your costs. Well, I like the explanation you made, right? It's like getting your bank statement back and say, okay, you spent this much, no divided by transactions, no divided by vendor, just here you go. Yeah. So, definitely have a tag strategy so that you can then use all the tools that are built on top of it, like Tag Explorer dashboard.
Absolutely.
Awesome. I think we are at the hour over here. Thank you so much, Meredith, for doing this with us, for showing us what these dashboards can do. I think it's an amazing set of tools that literally everyone who's getting started with AWS should use. And anyone who is already on AWS and hasn't got their entire FinOps legs stable yet, this is probably one of the easiest ways to get started. So please go try it out. And I'm sure Meredith and the rest of the AWS team would be more than happy to help you guys out. It's all self-service. It's all available for you all to use in the labs. So we will post the link as well. But and I think it's right there at the top of this list, I think.
I've been putting some in the comments. What I really like is that it's all transparent, right? Like I said, it's not some third-party product that's giving you some closed analytics and you have no idea what it's doing. And it is, from the perspective of your account, it exists like a regular QuickSight dashboard, right?
Correct.
That's
Right.
Or any other things that we should know as potential users or new users of cloud intelligence dashboards?
Sorry, I missed that first part of the question. My internet is really not playing nicely.
There's always someone in the house who decides to turn on a BitTorrent right when this happens.
Not in this house ever, no.
Okay, good. Well, they're not in that house, but somewhere it might have happened to me. Okay, so what about cloud intelligence dashboards? Like, what are the final thoughts? How do we get started? What are kind of what's the future of it? Where's it going?
Yes. So there is. I'll pop the link to the well-architected labs in here for you, and maybe you can share that through the comments.
Yep.
So there, if you go right to that page I've linked to, there's feedback with an email address for us. So if you get it deployed, if you have any problems getting it deployed. So one of the things that comes up sometimes is, I don't have the right permissions to be able to deploy these things. What are the minimum permissions required? So getting in touch with us, we can help fine tune any policies that you might have in place. We can get into a call and talk to you, go through it together. If you have some customization questions, anything like that, it's cloud-intelligence-dashboards@amazon.com. And if you have a technical account manager, if you're so lucky to be as on enterprise support, then definitely reach out to your TAM about this, and they can engage with us individually if they need to as well. So go into the labs, getting in touch with us through email. You can also post any questions that you might have through repost, so the AWS forums. And yeah, we would love to hear from you if you decide to deploy them, even if you especially if you don't have any problems and you're just really enjoying using them, we'd love to hear from you.
Meredith, one last question from me.
Sure.
If there was one single cost optimization that your customers looked at these dashboards and picked out of there, or you would pick for them, that they should just go and implement without thinking twice, what would that be? Something that's impactful that you've seen tons of.
Yep.
But at the same time, an absolute no-brainer for someone to go implement. What would that be?
Right. So we've already talked GP2 to GP3. My other one that I really love is S3 intelligent tiering. The amount of standard storage that I see is just, it makes me go, but why? So intelligent tiering or lifecycle policies. So, sometimes the intelligent tiering might not be a good use case for you, but some way to not keep your S3 data, or keep it in standard storage. That's my biggest tip.
I put the link to S3 intelligent tiering. It's funny, we have a lot of similar viewpoint, right? We just released a blog post on S3 intelligent tiering. It's the same thing. It's one of those, it's like GP2 to GP3. This is you will always be better off, almost always, right? Unless you put a bunch of tiny little objects in there.
That's it. There's a small caveat of a couple of use cases that probably wouldn't benefit from intelligent tiering. But yeah, also, check out the AWS pricing calculator if you're curious about how some of these things work and you don't have the dashboards yet. That can give you a good idea too.
The old one is going away, isn't it?
It is.
It is expiring. Gonna miss that one.
Bigger and better things.
Anyway, thank you so much, Meredith, for all this amazing insight and answering all these questions. Really appreciate it, and we hope to have you back on the show sometime soon.
Love to.
For another round of this.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. See you all next week. Bye.
Is your AWS public cloud bill growing? While most solutions focus on visibility, CloudFix saves you 10 to 20% on your AWS bill by finding and implementing AWS recommended fixes that are 100% safe. There's zero downtime and zero degradation in performance. We've helped organizations save millions of dollars across tens of thousands of AWS instances. Interested in seeing how much money you can save? Visit cloudfix.com to schedule a free assessment and see your yearly savings.